Hey, welcome to Worship Tutorials. My name is Bradford. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to play some of the parts in Sunday is Coming by Phil Wickham, and Sunday is in fact coming because we're hoping this is posting before Easter. So if you go on to like multi-tracks or you have playback or something and you see the original stems to this song, you may be immediately flustered by the fact that there's 9 electric guitar tracks. And if you pay attention to the way they're stacked, not all 9 are going at the same time. 2 of them are kind of like playing the same thing, a lower octave, maybe like a baritone thing, kind of sitting like 1 string, maybe 2, and kind of like digging at the tempo at certain points just to thicken it up. So you're definitely hearing more like the tracks as they're intended for the studio mix, not like a live mix. So what we try to do when we make these videos is condense all the parts really into one. So if you're the only guitarist, which we probably think is the safe bet for a lot of churches, probably what most churches are dealing with. So you can do that. If you have a second one, well, look at some of the rhythm parts. If you have access to the tracks, I'd say do that. The other thing is I would say for rhythm, you're really just playing chords, hitting diamonds, letting things rake, just raking a chord. For context, this is... that kind of thing. A diamond is when you just like let it, kind of like a whole note, but anyways, hey, we are offering these kind of resources to you for free. We take all of our knowledge and skill, and this is considered our ministry. We do this so that we can help you be equipped and ready for Sundays. We don't ask for money in order to do this stuff. All we ask is, would you consider subscribing, liking, commenting, sharing, all of that YouTube jargon? That would be really great. We'd really appreciate it. Now, before we get diving in to the parts, let me talk about gear, mainly because people are curious about how to build the sounds as well and kind of what's going on. We're actually giving away a preset of this song for free because it is pretty straightforward. Didn't have much to do sound-wise, just a few tones, simple tones. And so I was like, you know what? It's Easter. Brian, we should give this away. And he was like, we should. So patch will be for free. I am running this beautiful Shelton GalaxyFlite, which is like a Jazzmaster with Porter wide range humbuckers. That's all I use. I don't use the Jaguar pickup here. That's going through my board, which you should be able to see right now. The drive I'm using, the only drive, is the Protein. I'm using the Gravitas for some trem at times. The Eventide H90 is really just for delays, an eighth and dotted eighth. Well, I actually tap it slower because I didn't want to mess with stuff so I could get whole notes. So I had an eighth note and I tapped it to half that speed so I could get quarter notes. Anyways, using the Strymon Big Sky MX, just 2 sounds there, like a more medium and a bigger. And then I am in fact using the Mood, which you're hearing, I think at the end of the song, but also like the little breakdown. They're calling it a bridge, but it's like the same verses again. But that's it there. And I am running the Cali, the compressor, on all the time. This is like my bass tone at the beginning of the song. You're hearing just a little bit of breakup on the amps, which I'll get there in a second, and the delay and reverb. So that's the bass tone. It's like, you know, I don't know, in my opinion, that's like just that edge of breakup. But let me talk about amps real quick. You can only see, well, you can, this side shot here you go. You can see the 2. These are REVV D25s. I'm using the XLR out. Please do not do this to any amp. This works because the XLR out is using Two Notes Captor technology. I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what IRs. Maybe at one point I loaded some of the WTIRs onto the standard D25, maybe, but I'm not sure what I'm on even then, and this Joey just came straight from them and I didn't do anything either. I'm using my Bradford signature pick from Honey Picks. He calls this, I forget the material, it was a part of the Beekeeper stash, and it got bumps all the way to the edge, so you can use that for some textures, and I'm utilizing that in this song. This song is in the key of C, and it is at 80 BPM. I'm using like a clean tone. I'm using a first stage gain with the blue side of the Protein. I'm using the second stage, which is the green side of the Protein, a little more saturated, a little thicker. And then I am stacking the 2 towards the end. And so I got the tone for the verse is like volume knob rolled back. Tone knob rolled back a little bit. We're set on quarter notes. So I like it a little dark on the bridge pickup. You really get the character of the delay if you dial it in that way, but because the guitar is not so bright. And you are hitting those two notes till the chorus riff comes in. So all we got there is a C note and a G note. So 1 and a 5 together in the key of C, and I'm using a D shape. So let me brighten this up so you can kind of hear what's going on. Here's a D chord. Here's that's using 3 fingers. Here's using 1 finger to bar, the first finger on the 2nd fret, and then your 2nd finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. It's just a D chord. So we're utilizing that technique, and we're scooting it. You know, if you want to go down, you actually play the G and the E string open, and then you play the 1st fret of the B string. You know, but to higher up, that's just for reference. You're moving the shape. This shape is movable. So this is a D chord right here. This is an E. This is a G. This is an A. And it's because of the note that is on the 10th fret of the string. So this is an A note. Let's remember it that way because this is a D note, 3rd fret of the B string. So that's the D chord. So let's take that approach and go and give us a C. All the way up here, 12th fret with the 1st finger on G, B, E. And then you want your 2nd finger on the 13th fret of the B string. That's all I'm really hitting. Again, I like bridge pickup with the tone rolled back, and I'm really just hitting the G string and the B string. I want it warmer than that. Here's with the delay. Now, this is a common sound for me, like a common delay sound for me. So for this song, I would want to crank up the repeats a little bit more personally. It doesn't really matter, but this is just like my standard 8th delay, so I didn't want to adjust it just for that because it worked fine. Okay, so we do that for a while until we get into the chorus riff. Now, I am thinking as the pentatonic, the C pentatonic, C major pentatonic, A minor pentatonic. If you're not familiar, you're gonna learn the notes or the frets where the notes are, but I would highly recommend learning that. I think the vast majority of riffs I keep in this shape. And this is, again, movable. You're starting on the 5th fret and you're not going any further than the 8th fret, and everything you're playing is in between that. So you just move that shape around and you can play this riff as long as you know where your root is. So in this case, the 5th fret, it's an A, so A minor pentatonic. Here's the riff, and I'll teach it to you. Kind of rushing it because let's get to the end. So you're starting with just about every time this, and then you're gonna like end on a different note, kind of move that part around. So that is B string, 5th, 6th, 8th, 5th fret on the G. Now this riff is different this first time than it is the rest of the song. So we do. So that is 5th fret to the 7th fret on the G string, 5th fret B, back to 5th fret G. Now we're going to repeat that first riff. Then we're going to do that again, and we're going to go to the 7th fret on the G instead of the 5th fret on the G. And then resolve. You don't have to. I actually don't think it does, but I like doing it. Okay, and then we're into verse 2. You'll hear this rhythmic thing just picking back and forth. That is a C note. That is a thing I would learn. I would remember that when in doubt, if you're trying to add some movement, just play the 1, which I always find by wherever you're rooted on the pentatonic, right? In this case, 5th fret, it's always going to be the G string, so that's a C. You can do it wherever. I typically like to keep it, like if I can keep it in these frets. I don't like to go too low. Sometimes that sounds weird, depending on the key you're in. This is more about the technique. But a lot of times I'll do something like a little. And and like a little bit of movement depending on what's going on. But in this case, we're just keeping steady notes the whole time. The way it is played and mixed, it sounds more percussive, honestly, than it does just like a note. But I would just keep doing it, kind of think about it. Whatever seems to fit like the vibe. You know, if it's a bigger room, maybe it feels good to leave space. Maybe if it's a bigger room, you need to add more. But if it's a smaller room, maybe you need to be paying real close attention to what you're playing so you can make a bigger impact instead of playing constantly. Just be aware of that. But here's what's happening. So we're putting a little bit of an emphasis every now and again. You could keep it a little more straight if you want. It depends. Maybe your drummer likes to kind of groove stuff a little bit more too. Then we're gonna go back to our riff. In this case, I kick on the green side of the protein, and I have this. At this point, I've switched my delay over to just quarter notes. And I'm actually using dotted eighth. I like that for riffs. In this case, it kind of like fills in some space so it's not as empty. Otherwise, you get. So let's talk about that riff real quick. It is the same except for one part. We go. So I like to use my pinky to do that. I'm using it anyways to get the 8th fret of the B string, but I just go ahead and lay it flat. Little wiggle stick action. Back to the ending. There's that. Then we resolve. Again, I like to use the ramping trem in context. Here's the drive and all and delay, and here's. So I turned that off because you wouldn't be able to hear me talk. But I chose to use the mood in that moment because we often don't use a lot of tracks at my church. And maybe we will, maybe we won't for Easter. It depends on the band and whatnot. But typically I do that kind of stuff. And like that's just like a little fluttering thing. So it's not like as thick as a pad, but it's kind of like keeps a little something interesting going so the piano can just play piano. And that's if you want to. But I like doing that with the Mood. It's a really great pedal for that. If you want to see a video on the Mood or other weird, fun, quirky noisemaker pedals, let us know in the comments. So after that, we build in, that wasn't the end, that wasn't the end. Let me tell you what happens next. There's like a slide. We're using, now you don't have to do this, but I like playing slide and it sounded great in the track. So basically we're taking, if you imagine your, like, this is like an A bar chord shape. So we're playing a C here. If you envision like, this is like the part of the A chord that we do this way, one finger. We're using this finger as like a capo of sorts, really, to give us like. So it's the same approach. If you weren't aware of that with bar chords, if you don't know bar chords, I'd say that's a different topic for a different video. We probably have one if you'd like to watch that. But I'm taking that side of it. So in case you're wondering, if you're doing the song in the key of A, for example, well, you just take this, you take that same thing. Or if you're doing the song in the key of E, here's that chord. These are your notes for an E. It's like it's an inversion, B, E, and then G sharp. So it's like inverted, it's inside out. But I'm taking the C, the low C, and I'm going all the way up to the high C, and that's tough because to be able to nail that as smooth. So close. Then we're just hitting this. So that's way up there. You know what? It's like it's your G to an E, which I don't know how many frets this is. 20, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 12, 20 to 17. So this slide, if I put it on too hard, I can't get it off. I'd rather not because of the ending part. But then we go into the kind of like a refrain is what they're calling it. It's a little bit more of a bridge kind of thing to me. We're hitting like octaves. So that's 3rd fret, 5th fret on your A string and G string. So power chord is where we want less. And this is what I'm doing. That's what sounds good to me. Then we're going from 3rd fret up to 5th fret. I'm just gonna, keep that spacing in mind, but I'm gonna count that. So C to D, it would be in the key of C, a D minor, but we're doing more of a part. They're not hitting a D minor. Next, we're gonna go up E to F, which is gonna be 7 to 8. Hit up to the 10th fret, 7th, 5th, do it again. Then we get to the instrumental section. This is tough. I got big fingers and I was trying to do takes of the song in practice, and so it wore my fingers out while doing it. It was like the takes got worse and worse during the playthrough just because my fingers were sore. We got this riff. So it's a G to a C. 5-1. We're gonna hit the 15th fret of the E string, 13th fret of the B string. This is where it gets tough, but it's fun at the same time. If I could do it lower, it'd be easier, but when you get up here, the tension is harder, and I got big fingers, all that. So we're doing these bends. They're like unison bends. And if you do them on, this is another technique, log this away. If you do them on the B and the G string, it's a little easier. E and B is different because you got to go wider. Basically what you're doing is you're finding the note on the B string. So basically what you're doing is you're going to the B string and the G string, and you're keeping B string, whatever fret you're on, that tells you the note, and you're gonna bend up to that from the G string. You're gonna do that 1 fret apart. Is it 1 fret apart? If you're on the 12th fret, the 15th, is that 1 fret apart? Because there's one in the middle, or is it 2? It's 1 in the middle. That's 1 fret apart. 13th fret on the B string, 15th fret on the G string, and you're kind of like gonna bend it, start bending it as you hit the note. And you're basically trying to get that G string up to the same note as whatever's on the B string. It's tough because in the moment it can be hard to tell if like in that case I was a little sharp. It could be hard to tell if that was actually the B string doing that or the G string. So it takes a lot of practice, and it's hard to replicate like as many times as we're doing it in this outro. So we start again, 15th fret of the E, 13th fret of the B. We're gonna start with our first one. I would recommend, it's more comfortable here to use 1st and 2nd finger, but the second I move, I wish I had 1st and 3rd. So we're up here on the 18th fret and the 20th. Back down a half step. Do that riff there. We're on the 15th fret of the B and the 17th fret of the B. Then we do like this nice, we're in the key C, so we're on the 13th fret of the B string and the 15th fret of the G. We're gonna slide up to like the E, basically, which is gonna be on the 17th fret and the 19th fret. Whole step down, which is gonna be our 15th and 17th. Resolution on the 1. It was a marathon just to play right there. But that's the song. That's what I did in the video, at least. I did a little bit of swells at the end. Depends on what you're going for, obviously. But that's it. It's a fun song, and that ending, like, it gets my fingers, and I've probably played that part like 15 times tonight trying to prepare for it and make sure I had the timing and all that jazz. If you'd like to see the playthrough, that is linked below as well. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Hope it was helpful. If you got questions about stuff like this, the song, whatever, please hit us up either in the comments or get with us via email or social medias or something. See you next time.